Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale as well as the latest episode of Happy. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Riverdale, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Happy. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Riverdale. A fantastic episode, fantastic mid-season finale with a lot of interesting things that kind of went down. So, interesting things. For one, we learned that the Blossoms are broke. Was kind of interesting. I guess it's like, it's hard to say because a lot of their family industry was built around sap and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like a lot of their income most likely probably came from the whole drug game that Clifford was kind of mixed up in. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I guess after he died, the legitimate business kind of fell apart because I think it was the board probably took over a lot of that. So I guess none of that money goes Cheryl or her mom's way, simply because it's like, well, he probably got after his death, and it's like, ooh, we got to cut our ties with the Blossom family. So, and I don't think Cheryl's mom actually has a job. It's that situation because Cheryl kind of pokes fun at her. It's like, oh, the only skill set you have is being a terrible mom, which is kind of interesting. Going on because she bought that tree and everything, and I don't know whether that buying the tree was just is that supposed to be I'm accustomed to a certain lifestyle, so if you can't keep up with it, oh well, that's your problem, or that just kind of giving her mom a middle finger of for not having a sock out for Jason, or not keeping up with things, it's kind of your responsibility as the parent, so kind of get your shit together type of thing. I don't know. We did see her at the end of the episode making out with someone. I didn't catch quite who it was that she was making out with. I looked at her face, but it didn't look like someone I knew. But, I mean, there's one way to look at it. Is that her trying to sleep her way into a job or something? Or was that just, her lover or something? Which I'm sure Cheryl was going to be pissed about because it's I don't know how she'd feel about that, her mom being with someone else. Whether it's oh, no, my mom, would she care? Would she be pissed? I don't know where that whole situation would lie. And that was just interesting to me. Obviously, the big focus of this episode was, Joseph. Apparently, it's oh, he's not coming into work. It's oh, what's up with that? There's a new janitor and everything. And Archie and Betty start looking into it. And lo and behold, it turns out, he's possibly kidnapped by the Black Hood. And it's oh, these secrets they got to unravel about everything. Which, to be fair, from the beginning, I was he kidnapped himself. Just because that phone call situation, I was that doesn't seem like the Black Hood's type of move. Even if it was I wouldn't think he'd put Joseph on the phone. So I was that has to be part of some ploy or something like that. Turns out to be the case because it was him under the Black Hood. But nevertheless, we end up finding out that basically back then he accused the wrong person. And so the person that died wasn't actually the person who killed his family. So the question is he was a kid at the time, so he made a mistake. But it's hard to say, maybe it's a situation of did the person who did it because how could you mistake them? Because I guess maybe it's one of those situations that now he's older, he's able to pinpoint it a little bit more. Maybe he was wrong from the very beginning. Maybe he just thought it was that preacher that came into town was kind of a con man or whatever. Maybe he thought it was him. Maybe, it's hard to say what really went through his mind. But it's kind of interesting him setting the whole thing of having Betty bury Archie, almost. Luckily, they called the cops and everything, so things didn't turn out as bad as they could have with the whole situation. And I think it's also a good thing that it wasn't Archie that shot him, because I think even with the situation that Archie's in, dealing with that whole situation, what happened to his dad, I don't think he would be able to quite live with himself. I don't think he'd be okay after doing it. So luckily, it was Sheriff Keller who actually pulled the trigger in that situation. But it shows you his dedication, because the fact is he cut off his own finger just to prove a point and send it to Betty, which was super creepy. But at the same time, it's because he's still walking away from the episode not understanding everything. Why he did all this. The theory at the end of the episode is no, when it's all said and done, he did all this because he wanted to make some balance. He wrongfully got a man killed, and Riverdale was behind killing that man. So to bring some balance, he's trying to etch out all the sins and all the crimes, which immediately, Archie's oh, I just couldn't see it. You were right from the beginning, Veronica. But immediately I go, it's not him. He's a copycat. He wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of make up for his sins, I guess. Kind of expose kind of the evil side of Riverdale, because Riverdale is this evil, sinful place that's hiding all these different skeletons. And I think for him, that was his way of getting retribution. I still stick with what Archie saw, the green eye situation. And I start thinking, like, maybe the person that shot Fred at the beginning, well, in the season 1, throughout all this, that is the original Black Hood. And every subsequent attack, it was Joseph the entire time trying to, well, once again, bring back balance and scale. Not unless there were other people too. You know, that begs the question. Like, it's like I'm saying, like, I had this whole thought in my head, like, there are multiple people going off at being the Black Hood at multiple times. Like, maybe the Black Hood has had nothing to do with every subsequent attack. Maybe it was just Joseph doing his own thing. Especially because a lot of the stuff they pointed out at the end of the episode, it's like, well, how he would know about Archie and Miss Grundy is like, well, the fact of the matter is he would stay behind a lot, so he probably saw them in the music room together. So like that, a lot of that clicked together in my head. Especially considering who like most of his victims were. Like that was information I feel like you would probably most likely get at a school or stuff you would stumble across. But I still wonder, like, is most of the subsequent attacks after Pop's diner, was that someone else? Like, so does that mean the Black Hooded Pop who hit Pops was hired by someone to do that, just to send a point to Fred? And it just kind of grew as it's like, or didn't, you know, maybe like someone else took advantage of it. It's hard to say. Because Veronica did learn the truth about whatever her family's up to. She did say that she'll be fine with it as long as she doesn't do anything illegal, which her mom's like plausible deniability and stuff like that. And then as long as they still pay for Fred's medical needs. So it's like, if they were responsible for Fred getting shot, I don't think Veronica would be so okay with it. I don't know. That's my question on that whole situation. But it's like, which in the end, like her and Archie getting back together at the end of the episode, there's a part of me that's like, oh, like I can't help it. There's a part of me that's like, well, you know the truth about what your family's up to. That wouldn't be part of the plan, would it? Because they're like, no. We could use this as an opportunity, like paying for Fred's medical bills. We could use it as, you know, he's a prideful man, so he wouldn't accept it. But at the same time, it's like, oh, it's our way. We could possibly use him. He could play a role in what we need to do for going forward in the future. And it's like, well, could Veronica being with Archie be a means of like, oh, we can get back? You know, I mean, obviously, I think just because she saw the locket he got her and just like it made her go like, no, I love you. So like, there's a pessimist inside of me that's like, I'm scared that it's going to be a situation of like, that was just all part of the plan. Or maybe Archie might feel like it's the plan later on. Hard to say. And just so many moving cogs in this whole situation. But getting back to what I was bringing up before, it's just like, I don't know if she would be okay with that, but I still kind of feel like maybe Hiram's still possibly a suspect for that. I don't think this whole Black Hood thing is over, especially how they ended Betty's story in this mid-season, being like her not burning the hood. Like now, because the way Jughead was putting it was like, oh, she stared into the darkness, the same darkness that Joseph had, and there was a part of her that felt like it wasn't over. Now, there was a part of me that goes, does it mean that as like, there's a small part of my brain that's like, no, does it mean that as like she's going to start wearing the Black Hood, realizing that there's a lot of like terrible crap in Riverdale that needs to be uncovered and known by everyone? Is that what it kind of means? Or is it supposed to mean like she figures that there's more to it? She feels it. I guess it's going to be a situation of going forward. It's going to be like she's still investigating it without letting anyone know. And everyone's like, no, Betty, it's solved. Everything is over. You're just getting so caught up in this. You can't let go, you know? So it might be something similar to that, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that front. I definitely feel like this isn't over. Especially because we're still going back to the 2 notes. It's like, oh, these notes were written by 2 different people. So that makes me think like someone was kind of working alongside that situation. So I do believe Joseph's the one that kept contacting Betty, why he chose her specifically. Because it turns out because her grandfather had a connection to the whole situation. He was one of the group that ended up killing the innocent man, which we still don't know who else was a part of that. I mean, we saw the picture, but I think it's still not really something like, oh, we know exactly which family members are tied to that. Maybe it's tied to Archie's side of the family. And they said grandfather. I didn't know which grandfather they meant. I would have assumed it was the grandfather that's on Hal's side of the family. The fact is that, because his family and the Blossom family were once one, I thought it was that, but it seems like, not unless it's Alice's grandfather. I don't know. Like, I don't think because they never specified it in that situation, like whose grandfather that was. So I'd be kind of interesting to see how that all, what that means going forward. Because it might be a situation. it makes sense why he would pick her in a sense. Like I said, there's some balancing scale to all of this, paying retribution for what he kind of ultimately cost one person's life. And we still don't even know who that killer was exactly. So that person might have connections to the real Black Hood or maybe just someone else in town. You don't think that has anything to do with the whole Blossom and Cooper split, do you? Now that I think about it, because we did find out the reason why Hal has such a problem with the Blossoms, like their grandfather killed his grandfather or great grandfather, whatever the case may be. So I was like, was it grandfather or was it great grandfather? I don't remember. No, because that's just her grandfather. So I think it was like a great grandfather in that situation. So I think it was like Hal's grandfather and Clifford's grandfather in that particular situation. Nevertheless, we actually don't know that much about Cheryl's mom, like anything about her family, do we? Because that's not her mom, that's Clifford's mom, like Rose. That's Clifford's mom, right? Maybe, I don't know. The whole family tree situation is complicated in that regard. So I'm just curious to see like what that all means going forward. We have things heating up with the whole Serpents and Penny situation, which Jughead kept kind of being put on the outs for it, but it's just like he wants to help, he wants to make up for his mistake, but FP doesn't want him a part of this because FP's like, if this is my responsibility, he basically wanted Jughead just to live his life. Yes, I get it that, you might have caused all of this, but this isn't your responsibility anymore. I don't want you caught up in this. But for Jughead, it's like, no, she's going to make you do more and more things. It's drugs now. Who's to say it won't be in the future her wanting you to kill somebody? Once again, we still don't know what it is that she holds such a grudge against FP for. So. But what took me by surprise is once again, we see that darker side of Jug in this episode because he unites him and the younger serpents like Sweet Pea and Tony and others, kidnap her, drop her off in Greendale. It's like, yo, get out of our town. Don't ever come back. You want to do your drug thing? Go somewhere else. The serpents aren't going to be a part of it. And then Jughead proceeded to cut off her serpent tattoo. I was like, whoa. I was like, that's woo. Which immediately FP's like, you shouldn't have done that. She's going to be back, which I know she is. And she's going to be back with a vengeance. You still haven't settled the whole, like, the fact that she has proof of you and Archie dropping off drugs. You don't have proof. I don't know how you didn't really resolve that situation, but I guess it's like, if she tries anything, the serpents will come after her because you're no longer protected. But she's going to come back with a vengeance. It's kind of what FP's worried about. But for Jug, it's like, this is my life. This is my home. Like, don't kind of make me, like, you can push me off to do, like, taking care of just presents and stuff like that. Which is so interesting to think about. The fact is that the serpents give back to the community. It's weird. It's just because they have such a bad perception of being like, oh man, this rough and tumble gang. It's kind of like the Yakuza. Like, the Yakuza are just like, oh man, they're thugs. They do this and that. They actually do a service in Japan. They actually look out for people. Like, they make sure, I mean, they get their little cut, sure, but they don't, like, they kind of almost act as another watchful eye for people. They do help people out. So I guess it's kind of something like that, but it's just weird to think about the serpents being like, oh no, we kind of give back to the community and stuff like that. Like, we know they're not all bad. The whole drug thing is something that they stay out of. So, I mean, it's like, really, what do the serpents do when they're not doing that? When they're not kind of caught up in all of that? Because the only reason why they kind of got pushed into the spotlight in all this situation is just because of their dealings with the Blossoms as well as the Lodges, so there's that. But the really interesting thing I'm very interested about is the whole fact is that obviously Archie and Betty kind of got a little closer and they kissed. Cheryl saw it, which immediately that she's going to use that to blackmail them, which is going to make things awkward because their friendship, that group's friendship, is literally on the verge. Because I mean, obviously you have Archie and Veronica getting back together, but there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's going to get super awkward considering you kissed Betty. I mean, well, Betty kissed you, but still. And then her and Jug aren't 100% back together. It's just kind of awkward there. Like, because you also have to think about the outside aspect of that too, because it's like, well, Veronica, like, if she finds out that Betty and Archie kissed, she's going to be pissed because, like, that's her best friend and her boyfriend. So that's going to cause a split there. Jughead is like, Betty's my girlfriend, but Archie's my best friend. How could you backstab me like this? The entire group will fall apart. And ultimately, it'd probably make them even more reluctant to even want to be together. Even though there's a connection, even though they want to be, I mean, they've known each other for most of their lives. It'd still be a situation like, we betrayed our best friends. How could we do this? Like, we care about each other, but we care about them too. And just the complexity of that situation. I'm just curious to see what Cheryl does. She's going to blackmail them. She's going to throw it up in the most inappropriate time just because she's her. I don't know whether it's the whole situation about like, oh my God, you're asking my Nana Rose all these questions. Get out. Oh my God, you just always want something. There's that, but then there's also the fact that it's like Cheryl would kind of just do it anyway. She'd find an excuse just to kind of cause problems, just to cause problems. It's just how Cheryl does. So I'm definitely curious to see how like that all proceeds going forward. I mean, like I said, the biggest question I'm walking away from this, I'm so upset. We as the audience still don't know what the lodges are up to completely. What buying Pops has to do with them, like what they're all like. It can't be that bad if Veronica's being a part of it. But to be fair, I don't know whether that's like something where she's like trying to get on the inside so she can help dismantle her family's plan, or whether she's legitimately okay with it. Because I think both Veronica and Jug are on the tipping edge of both worlds that they're going into. Whatever her parents have in plan, and for Jug, whatever, getting mixed up deeper into that serpent world. He's kind of already taking that step already in that direction because of the whole Betty pushing him away because of the Black Hood thing. But I think if this whole thing comes out about Archie and Betty, or if at the very least it goes any further, I think it's going to push them into respective situations. And like, we might see Veronica start taking steps to becoming the person she was before she came to Riverdale, and we might continue to see the darker side to Jug. Like I said, a fantastic mid-season finale. We got some answers, but on top of that, even more questions as well. We will have to wait a little while. Riverdale will be returning on January 17th, so very eager to see what happens when the show returns and the new episodes start coming back out, to see where this all takes us. And now moving on to this week's episode of Happy, another wild and crazy episode, but I learned a lot of interesting things. Like the fact is that we do learn that Nick is in fact Haley's dad. I even love the whole Jerry Springer bits. I thought that was so well done and cut together, especially because it felt like a real episode, even though like I've not seen Jerry Springer in years. I even like the joke, like, no, you're actually still on. But there's that, just how that was all constructed and done like that. And it's like, and then like Jerry being like, no, this isn't real. This is actually a metaphor because you just had a near death experience and stuff like that, breaking the fourth wall like that. Which is something else too I thought was kind of interesting about this, because we kind of learned a little bit more about Happy in this particular episode. Because it was something I meant to bring up in the first episode, but I forgot to. It's like, even though he's an imaginary friend, he still kind of has to abide by like the rules of nature and like the rules of this world. Because like to get through a door, he had to squeeze through it. Underneath it, he couldn't just phase through it. Just because he's an imaginary friend doesn't mean like the world doesn't exist around him. He could just do whatever he wants. He's not a ghost or anything. And then the fact is, he also apparently has the ability to break the fourth wall, because he was like, yeah, we're so fucked. It's what he says to the audience. So it's like, okay, so you have that ability too. So it's like, I'm curious to see I doubt he has any like real abilities. Because that's another thing I'm curious about too, to see if there's going to be other imaginary friends. Because obviously there's devils and these demons. Like obviously that was set up last episode. Whatever this dude is, this Santa dude is, he's one of them. But it's like, are there going to be other imaginary friends that we come across? It's still a question I'm curious about. And will they have, like, is it just because of Happy's specific situation, like, oh, he's an imaginary friend to a little kid, that he ends up, like, being the way he is? I mean, to be fair, all imaginary friends come from kids. But also the question is, too, and it's something I didn't even think about, what happens to imaginary friends in this world when they, their child gets older and stops believing them? Like, for example, like there's actually a storyline in Supernatural that kind of deals with like imaginary friends. Like I forgot what season it was in, but like they don't disappear. They just kind of go on and move on to a different child. So I'm wondering, is that what that happens in this case? Or is it a situation of like this imaginary friend is specifically tied to you? The moment you're done with them, they go back to their world, or they cease to exist. Questions like that, which I know it's weird. You never thought that I'd ever have an in-depth conversation about the nature of imaginary friends. It's actually kind of interesting, but also like kind of showing you just his powers, because it's like, it's hard to say like, just because it seems like real world things once again affect him, because he kind of sniffed that cocaine and went nuts in this episode. Plus he has his little swear jar that got broken, and I was like, oh, the fact is it got broken me because one of the bullets actually hit it. Even though he's invisible doesn't mean he's not actually there. So that means if someone reached for him, would they be able to grasp him? Because he is there, you just can't see him, because there's even a point where Nick threw money in a jar just because of the whole like manipulating him and be like, oh, I thought we were partners. Which I'm like, oh, you're such a scumbag for that. I love it, trying to manipulate him. So, whoa, whoa, Nick figured out, whoa, you can see the cards, but no one can see you. And it's just like, and just like, I thought we were partners. We'll go save Haley if I can get some money and some guns. It's like, isn't that cheating? It's like, but wouldn't she want you to do, wouldn't she want you, that teacher that want you to help me get guns and money so we could save Haley? It's just like, you're such a despicable douchebag, and I love you for it, Nick. So once again, that kind of plays into the role of like, oh yeah, like how things work in this whole world. So that's kind of interesting. Also, like the moment like she started hearing that voice of someone else talking to her, the moment the kid didn't give their name, I was like, that's that thing pretending to be one of the kids talking to her. And it turns out to be just because it didn't give its name. If it had been like, oh, my name's Kenji, it's like, because we saw that there was a kid that went missing this episode. Not missing this episode, because what pissed Amanda off is because she sees not only she's putting over these missing posters for Haley, but she sees another kid named Kenji, and she sees the cops just screwing around, which I guess, once again, it just shows you, I guess, how corrupt this town is, or just how, like, no one cares, to the point, like, they're all screwing around or whatever, and her daughter's missing. They couldn't even get, like, the particular officer she talked to couldn't get details right about Haley, calling her Ashley, couldn't even get her name right, so... But it seems like this thing, for whatever reason, wants to keep them kids. So I would assume it's because he eats kids or something like that, and he needs kind of like a Hansel and Gretel type of situation. Like, oh, I eat kids because I feed off their youth or some weird crap like that, or what? Needs them to stay kids because that's, they're the most delicious, or some weird crap like that. I don't know. Maybe he needs kids' life force or something. Maybe he needs them to kind of be his elves, and in this case, maybe elves being like puppets that he manipulates and controls. Like, we don't know what this thing is all about. We do see that it went out of its way to send a message to Haley's mom, like leaving a card and everything. So whatever these things are, it seems like there is like a human rationale to it, because that's almost like a ransom thing. They're like, oh, look, I got your daughter. So, but more so than anything, maybe that's meant to draw out Nick, because Haley kept talking about her dad, and he's like, oh, he's such an awesome hero. And we kind of dive into that this episode too, because it's like Nick isn't actually like, Haley only had one picture of her dad, and it's just like, for her, she built a whole story around it, like him being a hero, him being amazing, because she saw him being a cop and everything. So, which kind of takes me by surprise. I thought like the whole Amanda and Nick thing was going to be like a one-off, like, oh, a drunken mistake on like Amanda's part or something like that. It's like, no, they were actually married. Once again, he wasn't always the person he is now. He was actually a good cop. We ended up learning from Blue this episode that the reason why he's no longer a good cop is actually because of Meredith, because apparently they had a whole fling. It's because he's like, oh yeah, you ruined his marriage and his career. So it's like, obviously there was something happening between them. Obviously, like you could tell. I brought it up last episode. I was like, oh, they're definitely more than partners. There was something there. But it seems like that more than something there interfered with his marriage and kind of made things fall apart. So I guess before him and his wife split, she got pregnant. And because they were splitting up, she probably felt the need. It's like, no, you're a terrible human being. Your daughter doesn't need to know who you were, Because it seems like she tried to do everything she could to keep Nick out of, like, Haley's life. In a sense of, like, Haley not knowing anything about her dad. Except for that one photo. That's all she really had to know him by. But the question is, like, how did Meredith ruin his career? Has she always been in Blue's pocket? Or what is, and did that kind of like, did she kind of have to help Blue with the situation, and that meant destroying Nick's career? Or is it just because, like, Nick did something and Meredith kind of, being a good cop, had to turn on him? Maybe it's like an IA investigation or something like that, and had to turn on him that way. It could be either or. I also love Blue in this episode where he's making that metaphor to Meredith about, like, oh, basically you have to wait, for that, like, oh, going from a grape to a wine, like, given enough time, something great can happen. So it's like, oh, he's making this extended metaphor. And she's like, I get it, I'm the grape. He's like, no, I'm the grape in this situation. Basically, all he wants to do now is run the family. That's what he needs this password for, because that password is the key to running things. It's actually another person we found out about in this episode. We didn't meet him, but found out his name is Fresh Ken, because the guys that were at Nick's place work for him. It's like, whoa, you work for Fresh Ken since when? Since Tuesday. I mean, why? More money. It's like, I get it. I understand. It's just so, I love Nick just being like, I accept things as they. I was like, oh man, just like, look, I don't know, that weird craziness, and just kind of like, oh man, we're calm under this like extenuating circumstance of these guys trying to take you down. Felt worse for that guy that had his face dragged across the wall and then like shot with his own gun. Also, I love the fact is that because he was trying to prepare the flamethrower, so he's got like that spray from that old lady, and he's got the lighter. He's like fires it up and gets ready to do it again, and just ends up spraying it. I was like, that's a little funny. Like, oh yeah, you went through the trouble. It's like showing it. Yeah. He's, oh man, that poor dude. He's about to get. Oh, never mind. It doesn't work. Also, when he was at the table gambling and it was all said and done, he was like, oh yeah, one thing I'm good at. Slams the table, gets both guns. What other movie did that? I don't remember. Is it Wanted? The whole like holding a gun upside down and pulling the trigger like that. I want to say it was Wanted that did something like that. For whatever reason, that's so cool to me. I don't know. Also, it's kind of interesting that one thing he took from his apartment was the wedding ring. So... But Meredith's in a very tough spot in this particular episode because it's like, Smoothie is staying with her mom until she gets the job done. Which, Blue is like, oh, you earn, his confidence again. You're his trust again. Which apparently they haven't seen each other in like 10 years. So I guess that also is a question too. Like, why did things work between them? Even though his marriage fell apart. Maybe it has to do with her, whatever the situation is around her ruining his career. Maybe that kind of kept them from ever being together. Just, maybe, like I said, going back to maybe he quote unquote did something and she turned on him. So maybe that's why he doesn't trust her. Or maybe like I said, maybe it's because of the Blue connection in the sense of like she did something because Blue is like, okay, do this for me. And it meant taking Nick down. And that's another reason why it's like, oh, like maybe Mary lied or something. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, it's been like 10 years because I'm about to say like the way he acts so cordial towards her makes me go, I don't know if that's the case. Either way. She has to get this done or Blue's going to take it out on her mom, which, what kind of surprised me too was Amanda went to her and it's like, you need to help me find Haley. You owe me, which Meredith's like, I'll find another cop because I don't owe you. What's really surprising was the fact is Amanda punched her in the face. I was like, oof. I mean, that's the whole, no matter what the situation is, no matter how much time has passed, you still don't get over someone kind of ruining your family. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, she definitely, surprisingly enough, Nick handles that a lot better than Amanda did. But I mean, once again, it's a different perspective considering, like, fact is that he was having the affair with her and everything. So, like I said, I'm curious to kind of dive deeper into that whole situation about, like, what that all means. So it does seem like at this point in time, Nick has 100% accepted everything. Obviously, he was accepting Happy near the end of the last episode, but obviously he's accepting him even more. Like, yes, you are real. But I think everything is kind of finally sinking into him because it's like, oh, I am a dad. Like, Haley is my daughter. I've been running this entire time, and I keep trying to run from this. I can't do that forever. It's like, if I do it now, I'm going to keep doing it forever. And the fact of the matter is, Haley is his only hope. He also brought up something interesting, too. Like, imagine if friends can't die. I mean, they can die, but the only way they can die is if Haley dies, he dies. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. So going back really quickly though, I brought it up last episode. I was thinking like all the storylines were technically converging, but I guess they're not. Because I guess Blue has no idea what this whole like supernatural monster demons devils thing going on. Seems like he has no idea. Maybe it's one of those things like you only learn this secret when you become the Don, or maybe it's something that the Don grew up in that world knowing about it. Maybe him being part of this at the top of the family. Maybe it's like technically we're part of some old order of people that now is grown into a more mafia type of family, but old school this family was meant to deal with this secret and the knowledge. Or maybe he was just one of the few people that was in the know about this whole situation. I don't know. Like I said, it seems like I have to take that back, and it seems like the whole Blue situation is just about like taking that all back. I mean, maybe we'll find a connection later on. Maybe we'll find out that, because it's kind of interesting where you have something like that, where you have all this weird craziness, devils and imaginary friends, and then just crime boss, mafia, mobster types, So, and also the whole situation about that Santa. Like, also, why Santa? Is it just to fit the Christmas theme? Or is it meant to be like, is he like actually like a Santa? Makes you wonder about that situation too. Like now I'm sitting here thinking about, because I brought up imaginary friends earlier. What if they're imaginary friends, these devils, they're imaginary friends that have gone wrong, that basically something happened, something triggered in them in the darkness, kind of getting all light and dark and everything. What if like the darkness inside of them triggered and made them into like the monsters that they are, that they got corrupted? Maybe the moment that the people that they were imaginary friends to stop believing in them, some go one way of like, oh man, I'm okay, I'm a fae, and others, maybe it's like a ghost or a spirit type of thing where it's like when they have unfinished business, they just can't let go and they mutate and turn evil. Or maybe he is just a devil. But like, once again, why Santa? Is it just to draw kids in? Or, Also, the question I was bringing up earlier, like the whole, like, he seems like a human in the sense of like he's almost ransoming. Like, it almost has like a psychology behind it. Like, oh, I'm ransoming, or I'm letting you know that I have your daughter. Like, that's, like I said, that seems more like a human thing than it would a devil thing. So it makes me wonder, is it a situation of like, maybe it's a situation that in this universe, these devils were once humans first before they became the way that they are. Like, just how many kids does he have locked up? There's so many questions. We'll just kind of have to wait to see everything kind of go forward. Very interested to see how this all continues, how this all plays out, especially for Meredith and Nick. I mean, Nick's coming back. Fortunately for Haley, but unfortunately for Nick, because now he has Mary coming after him, which means Blue's kind of coming after him. Which he also has Fresh Ken coming after him, and who knows who else. Because Fresh Ken wants him dead, because it's like, if Blue gets that password, apparently he'll be untouchable. What that means exactly, I don't know. Not unless like that family has like something locked away, and that password give you access to like this. Like, maybe Blue doesn't know what it is exactly. He just knows that it will get him what he wants. So maybe it's like some devil or demon or something. Like, I just keep wondering what direction certain things can go. Like, there's so much I don't know about this series. It's just like there's so many possibilities where it could go. But nevertheless, maybe like the keys to the kingdom is a locked away demon that once you have the password, you can get access to it. Or maybe it's just purely a password to bank accounts and stuff like that. I feel like it's got to be something. It might not be the former, but I feel like it's too big to be the latter. I feel like it's got to be so much more. But we just kind of have to wait and see on that front. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good